Welcome, beautiful creatures, to the Lightness of Being Podcast, where we celebrate the dance of life and explore ways to find joy, laughter, and lightness, even when faced with challenges. Join me, your host, Monika Stefanik, as we step into the light and discover a realm of potential and possibilities for greater ease in our lives. Let's laugh, learn, and grow together. Welcome, beautiful, beautiful beings, to this episode of the podcast. Quite intimate feel tonight, this evening, as I'm recording. Lots of softness, if you can tell on the video. If you're watching the video, I'm like in a sweet little nook at my friend's home that I'm homesteading while they're away. I feel very honored and blessed, and this beautiful little nook on the ground that she's created with all these pillows and sheepskins and rugs, and oh my gosh, it's just so cozy, and wanted to be like, my body desired to be down here as I was feeling called to record. So here we are. This episode feels quite vulnerable, at least in a different way, just like with the energy that's really present. Honestly, I get a little insecure doing solo recordings nowadays. There's a bit of a voice that speaks in my head of, who's gonna want to listen to just you, Monika? Especially having the privilege and honor of getting to converse with so many beautiful people in my life and in my world, and bringing those conversations through to you all is an honor. And I just feel so blessed. And then I go to do these solo episodes, which are unplanned. And it's always, the energy always aligns where it's like, yep, this week, this is a week for a solo one, girl. And I'm like, oh, okay. So yeah, there's a bit of that coming in as I sit down to be here with you all. Another reason this feels so aptly timed and super vulnerable is just because of this period of time that we're in, and what I've been experiencing in my life over the last 3 months. I mean, we're not even like done with March yet. Yeah, I was actually journaling today, and I have this book that I journal in, which is actually a sketchbook. And I started using this book last year through a recommendation. And I had started a brand new journal as the year of Gregorian New Year 2025 started. And I sat down to journal today and realized that I'm already halfway through it. I had this same book last year, right? And it took me a little over a year to completely fill it, or like at least the full year to completely fill it. And that just like blew my mind. I was like, we're not even halfway through. We're not even, I mean, we're 3 months into this Gregorian year, and I've already filled it halfway. So I'm just like, okay, there's a lot flowing through, which is great. It's great to have such a good practice of being able to put thought form into word form and use that as a way to process Um, but it just blew my mind a little bit, to be super honest. And as apparently we're on that note, now we are actually, so I'm recording this the evening before our spring equinox tomorrow. Tomorrow is March 20th, and it's actually also the astrological new year, right? And we're moving from, so this is the last evening, last day of Pisces season, ending the astrological year, coming into Aries, this energy of fire and spring, and all of that, which is so so beautiful. And as we're settling into that space, remember, I am not an astrologer, and yet, of course, if you have been listening, you know that tuning into the natural rhythm of this planet that we're on, Earth, and the stars being part of our guide for this incarnation, is a big part of it's a big part of what I bring into my existence and how I move through the world in this realm. So that being said, I actually wanted to read something that I wrote down from a an individual that I follow on Instagram. Her account is called Girl in Her Moon. It's really, really beautiful. Highly recommend going and following it, and you know, viewing her content. Um, she's wrote something really beautiful about this closure time and entering into this new beginning time. And so I'd really like to bring that into the space first, and we'll just kind of see where our beautiful conversation, our self conversation, goes from there. So she writes, "The last moments of this year is a time of closure. It is the liminal space in time, bridging the past and future, a moment for us to reflect, complete, heal, forgive, and release the journey we have been on since March 2024. We are invited to rest, to go inward and contemplate, and to return to our intuitive guidance that knows the most nourishing path of preparation for the new astrological year. This preparation requires that we sink into the unknown space between the ending and beginning, between emptying your hands and having them filled. May you allow yourself to sink into this unknown. May you trust yourself and all of life enough to release what is no longer for you. May this emptying be the beginning of a glorious new chapter. As we move through transformative periods in our lives, astrology can provide a bigger picture. As we find ourselves letting go of comforts and familiarities, identities and structures, look to the moon to remind you of the growth that begins from this very emptiness. The sun, who is shining whispers of a brand new beginning, and the earth, the living embodiment of birth, transformation, and death, of cycles and flow, and an ever-changing self. A cycle is completing, a template expired, a pattern moved through to be left behind. We release what we are not so that we may evolve. We release what we no longer are so that we may transform into our next selves. We are cyclic beings, and it is our true nature to shift, evolve, transform, shed, release, bloom, and become, over and over and over. often we hold on to ways of being, circumstances, relationships, practices, jobs, or more, out of fear of becoming the emptiness that the natural world embodies so effortlessly. But it is here that we are reminded that where there is emptiness, there is spaciousness. Where there is spaciousness, there is potential. Where there is potential, there is beginning. New beginnings that reflect the you that you have shifted into. New beginnings that no longer keep you tied to old ways of being or keep you in a box that you no longer fit in. Let this be a reminder that you are under no obligation to remain the same. You can empty what has expired. You can surrender to the unknown. And you can say yes to something new. So again, that's Girl and Her Moon. And so just really settling into that space of being invited to rest and going in and contemplating again this recording being so aptly timed for me to do solo as I am in a space of deep contemplation and getting to occupy a home alone where I just get to be in my own energy, in my sovereignty, and really getting to feel what's real and alive for me as I step forward. And it just always so synchronistic when the universe throws things like this. Not even throws, just like this just like landed in my lap, right? Of being able to occupy this space, especially over this period of time. And like I didn't know consciously that, it was going to be over the new year and over the astrological new year and all this. And so just really getting to marvel at at the ways the universe shows up when we're truly in surrender. And this is like a manifestation, right, of me being in alignment with my highest timeline and my potential. And a lot of what I've been, not reaching, asking for, consciously asking for, and attuning to through my actions in this world. And I was, as I was sitting in contemplation, just staying curious about like if I had not reached a level of surrender and letting go into my circumstances over the last few months, if I would be where I'm currently sitting right now. And I mean, of course, I don't know. It was just a thought that came through as I've been in a space of deep, deep surrender. And realizing, right, that like as we truly do start to surrender, that's where the softening is in all areas of our life. I feel like, so I was getting ready to record this. I was like, the topic of surrender came back in, and I was like, I feel like a freaking broken record. And I'm like, again, these thoughts, these voices come in of like, are the people who listen to this podcast regularly, or even people that come back later, are they even going to want to listen to another podcast, Monika, on surrender? And I'm like, here we are in this place of like, I'm coming back to this topic of surrender, and it's so real and alive, like in all moments, and it's just very, very alive in my world right now, y'all. So this is something that we keep coming back to. And I know it's been in a lot of it's been a part of the topic of conversation in past episodes, and I recognize that, and also like vulnerable. Like this is just like where I'm at. I'm in a space of like deeply surrendering to the universe, and you know, in those spaces, like it's been a constant process of deepening into what that means. So actually, as I'm sitting here, I'm like, it's actually really beautiful that, this platform has been able to be a conduit of this evolution of what I have been undergoing and continue to undergo in the process of learning surrender, like really, really learning surrender. Because like truly, when I started this podcast, like when it launched, I, I was in a place where, yeah, it was like fresh into the surrender. And I wasn't even really leaning into it. Like I was very much who trying to control, like still stuck in these cycles of like, how can I fix this? How can I do this and that? And it has just been a process of unfolding that this podcast that all of you who have been on this journey with me get to bear witness to. So thank you for bearing witness to me being in my humanness and learning the process of letting go and surrendering to the flow and the unfoldment of life as it is meant to be. And, I was, so last night, I had a really beautiful day. It was a long day, but last night I opted to, as I was tuning into my body, to not go to a static dance, which is something that I go to pretty much every single week. It's like church for me, and it's a space where I get to commune with my friends. It's a space where I get to commune with my body and move and play and process and all these things, and it's just such a lovely space. And even the times when I don't always like want to go, there's always something for me there. So I was mulling it all day, and I was like, I'm gonna go. It's probably gonna be like an of the minute choice. Anyway, end of the day came, and I was like, you know what actually feels in alignment is going back to this beautiful home that I get to homestead and doing a really special ceremony with myself with a substance that I have not used in a few months, and but very consciously using it and yeah, not falling back into old patterns. So anyway, last night I spent some time like making really good meal for my body and nourishing myself fully and setting up this space and sitting down in prayer over this cannabis, this marijuana that my body wanted to consume in a conscious way to deepen into my body. And part of the right, this is where my logical mind goes in, is like, "Why did you want to smoke weed, Monica?" Honestly, when I was sitting with that, because even when the intuitive hit came in, I was like, "Whoa, body, like, are we really gonna do that? Like, are you sure? Because like, I don't know here." And I was like, "Yeah." Like, I was like, "Okay, cool." Because truth be told, as a body worker, as a healer, I'm gonna be super honest. Like recently, I have not really been practicing what I preach. We're gonna go full openness here. Taking care of my body in the way that it really requires, and which to me means, I mean, I have been doing, Kundalini yoga, but like really like stretching and working out and just really giving it the time, attention, and care that it requires so that I can show up as my best self. I've been feeling my body get very, very tight recently. And, it's created a lot of constriction. And so it got to this point where I was like, my body remembers that when I smoke weed consciously, I actually drop into my body in a way. That really allows me to be really present when I'm stuck in this cycle of not really showing up for it in the way that it's been asking to. So this ceremony, this cannabis ceremony, in a way got to be a kind of pattern interrupt to what I have been doing and allowed me to sit and be with me and really tune into and like, y'all, I can do this without weed. I don't need it to be a conduit to this. And apparently, what I've been going through and swirling in, it's just been challenging for me to sit and slow down in surrender and softness to my body in this way. So enter in cannabis. And I, yeah, created a ceremony and made this really beautiful space and just entered into this beautiful space with my body and just really leaning into like all of these areas that have just been so tight and so constricted. And like the biggest spot really has been like my neck, which makes so much sense, right? When I've been working on throat, as we're creating a podcast, working on opening up my throat chakra, and the podcast has been a beautiful platform, beautiful medicine for me. And so actually, like, I mean, I do massage. I also do energy healing, right? And of course, everything is energy. Like there's energy moving through in massage. And the energy healing is different because it's very much like I'm going to put my hand here and we're just going to hold and run energy processes through, right? And like keep your intention, my focus, my deep, deep presence on these spaces. So, with how tight and constricted my neck was feeling, I had just put my hands on my neck and just let them sit there. And of course, I know this, and yet to feel it again in my own body, to like do it for myself, felt so profound to really witness the softening, the releasing, the letting go. And it happened so fast. And, you know, a little tangent is one of the reasons that I bring this up is because as I was completing my day yesterday and feeling all this tension in my body and realizing that, like not really getting massaged myself as frequently as I should be, or again, taking care of my body in the way that I should be so that my fascia and my muscles and my blood and my lymph and everything is moving in the ways that feel really good and in flow. And getting to this point of like, oh my God, I feel kind of desperate. Like, I really would love someone to work on me like tonight. Like, I would love to receive a massage or body work or even just like a little bit of intentional touch in my forearms and my neck from someone else. Like, I need to get that from someone else in order to feel this release and feel this softening and feel the relaxation that my body is needing. And so, I was operating in that space and then being like, okay, and that like, yes, there are people I could reach out to. And also it's like pretty last minute. Like, Monika, you need to be on top of scheduling out your massages so that you can also receive. And I mean, this is stuff, again, this is stuff that I preach to my clients, right? So I'm like re-preaching it to myself here. And yeah, so recognizing that and that was a need and a want, and I'm like, okay, so this is here, this is alive, and I do really crave that. And instead of doing what I would have done in the past, which would have been like, oh my God, poor me, like I can't get that from anyone, like no one's here, like the people I want or the person I would want to reach out to, like is like not an option and all this stuff. And so instead of going into that like shame doom spiral, I was like, okay, body, like what can I do to support you the best, right? And so enter in again this intuitive hit of like cannabis ceremony, like do this for yourself. And so I'm in this really beautiful space and softening into my body, and this this piece of surrender comes back up, right? Because mm, what came through was as I was moving and holding and shifting is just this message of how can I surrender more? How can I surrender more? And how can I surrender more? Especially, when I was and on a physical level, like when I was getting into my hips and just oh yeah, there's so much there. Um, but that is just another space of like really big tightness. And so being in that space and how can I surrender more? How can I surrender more? And so like I'm doing this on a physical level at first, and then, these other pieces start to come in of like, just like other areas of my life, whether it's my business or one-on-one relationships or just other things that I have swirling around. It's just, how can I surrender more? How can I surrender more? How can I surrender more? And the second that I even like asked that question was just like a just total relaxation. Like, whoa, wow, this is where the medicine is. Like, this is truly where the message of like leaning into alignment, like this is where we lead from, is that space of truly deeply surrendering into like whatever is not meant to be in our lives, and whatever we're meant to let go of, to just release and let go of it. And I speak that right now with so much ease. And again, just even like a few weeks ago, a few months ago, like I know, like I knew like in my brain space that surrender is the path, but I hadn't fully embodied it. And so now being in this space of like deep embodiment of what surrender really feels like and can be, and the spaciousness and the potential and the beginning that opens up there is so beautiful, and is the softness that I have been looking for, whether it's in my physical body, whether it's in my relationships, whether it's in communion with my business or my home or all of these other things of life, right? Money, everything. Um, it's a deep trust. And again, synchronicities, so funny. As I was getting ready to record this, I had a message on my Substack, which y'all, if y'all are not on Substack, we love it over there. I had a message from one of the people that I follow on Substack pop up, who had posted a new writing to his publication. And I have also, again, a few notes from that, just because I want to honor his artistic process that comes through in his voice and onto written word, into Substack, into our space. So his name is Branden Collinsworth. He's a beautiful, beautiful writer. And the publication that I follow is called The Love That You Are. So beautiful. And the post that he just wrote was called Let Go and Let God. And this is, again, something that came into my world a long time ago, just that phrase, let go and let God. But I read it before sitting down to record and took a few notes from it, because I was just like, of course, this is, again, the theme of letting go, surrender, let God in. And so he speaks to just how, like painful and yet deeply humbling this space of surrender can be, because it's a stripping away of everything that isn't real, right? So that what is meant for you can finally arrive. And in that stripping, in that shedding, in that just deep, like peeling away, and it kind of feels like you're being skinned alive sometimes, and it's like, whoa. But also, so, I mean, yeah, snake, you're shedding skin so that there's space for something new to grow. Maybe like peeling skin is not the best. Uh, what's the word? Analogy for that. So pardon me there. Or the whatever visual comes to mind. Anyway, the stripping away of all of the things, like maybe it's a foundation that we've created. And it's so painful to be in those spaces. And sometimes it's not something so big, and sometimes it's something very, very big, And so at the bottom of that is this deeply humbling space of being on your knees in prayer, right? That deeply humbling space of like, I know that I can't go this alone, and I can't control what's happening. I can't grip. I can't hold. I can't fix. I can't do. There's nothing that I can do. So what happens if you just release? Right? And that space of release, I feel like, especially as humans, or I'll speak as someone who is has had a lot of trouble letting things go, that clings very easily. It is very humbling to then realize how intensely you were gripping onto something, and even if you love it, even if it holds sentimental value, like whatever it is, like to actually fully release and then see how insanely tightly, like it actually feels insane how tightly I was holding on to things looking a certain way, working out a certain way, or even just holding on to physical things and they break or they get lost or whatever it is, you know, to look at, to be on the other side and then turn around and look at yourself and what you were doing and how that alone, that gripping was causing so much pain. And maybe not even for you, maybe also for other beings, other people, other animals, whatever. Um, yeah, it's really, really humbling. And for me, it at least also put me in the space of, well, I don't want to do that again. Like through the space of surrender and everything that's been showing up in my life, I deeply, deeply trust, like deeply, deeply trust in the path and the unfoldment of the universe. And that is what's on the other side, is trusting that what is falling away was never meant to stay. Trust that what looks like loss is actually realignment. And even as I was undergoing, my process and receiving messages, again, intellectually and on some deeper level, like knowing that it is a realignment, and yet not coming back to that space of like not being able to fully embody it because I was still so tightly clinging and holding on to a certain way of being. And so being where I'm at right now, it's just really beautiful to observe the process and, to be able to bring this transmission through as we're recording, and just again knowing and trusting that there's medicine here, and not letting that little that little voice in my head say what she says or he says of no one's gonna listen to this. Like, people are done hearing about surrender, and what you're saying is old news, and there's no wisdom for like all of that. Like, I'm just gonna let all that go. And again, trust that I'm meant to be sitting here and transmuting this in the way that I am. And yeah, so another thing he wrote was that God isn't punishing you, right? Like, they're making room. Most people never experience real transformation because they are too busy holding on. And if that feels like you, maybe we take a pause. Yeah? Everything that you're praying for, wishing and hoping for is on the other side of surrender. Which, yeah, I mean, is so true. Like, I look at the life that I have right now, everything that I have, and, there are still some things that are in flux, and yet the way that things are settling at this current moment in time, I just feel so blessed. Feel happy and aligned and grounded and peaceful and at ease. And again, that doesn't mean that I don't have turbulence and things and busy days and all this stuff. Like, hell, I just spent like hours today finishing up my taxes, and that I was sitting down in meditation before getting ready to do this, and I could just feel my heart was like pounding, and I was like, why is my heart like pounding so much? I was literally just sitting down at the table for like hours getting everything done, and that also came from a space of ease, which was really beautiful, but it's also, it's tedious. So yeah, just bringing that real life humanness in, and yeah, just feeling my heart pounding, and I was like, what in the world? Anyway, when we are in these spaces of learning to surrender, and coming back to the like smoking weed and the cannabis ceremony that I did for myself, like, part of the reason, I mean, there's a lot of reasons that this plant medicine does not speak to me anymore. One of those is because it honestly brings on a lot of anxiety for me, and I don't always enjoy how it makes my heart beat really fast and all these different things. So, and realizing that part of what I get to do in these spaces when I'm in ceremony with it is I've found these different ways to breathe through that, right? So, and even as we're like, whether you're smoking weed, doing plant medicine, or just deep in a transformative moment in your life, and there's like all of this turbulence and all this stuff coming up, like, how much deeper can you breathe? How much deeper can you breathe? And come back to that space. And by coming back into that breath, that's when we get to look in and just continue to go deeper. Again, how can I surrender more? How can I surrender more? How can I surrender more? And just go deep, 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 diving into that space. And for me, from my experience, yeah, there is just a softness there, and a beauty, and an ease, and a peace. So the question that he poses towards the end of his post is, when life asks you to let go, will you trust it? And, I'd like to say where I'm at right now, yes. When life asks me to let go, yes, I will trust it. And I might not go down without a fight sometimes still, to just fully honor my humanness. I mean, I don't know. I feel like it depends on what it's asking me to let go of, because he was speaking in this post as well about how, yeah, he was just at a point in his life where something came up and he realized that, yeah, there was a space of letting go and he could have held on, but he just chose like early on to release and let go, and the spiral effect that had, which at first was a lot of things came crumbling down, but it was all for a reason at the end that he was able to realize. And so, I'm just honoring like the humanness where I'm like, yeah, I do trust, and also like, I don't know, like I still may fight sometimes just because it's part of my nature, and I'm still learning this process of unfolding into letting go. Yeah. So that's where I'm at. And that's our fun little piece for now. It's also like through this space that I've really started to bear witness to the life that I have created for myself. And so much of it has, I mean, has come from a lot of action, some pushing, some forcing, some all of that area of things. There has also been a good amount of being in flow and that. And yet, over these many, 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 many years of the type of life that I have been asking for, so much of it has very recently been actualizing in my world. And I'm like, oh, is there an association there of the amount that I'm willing to unravel and surrender and let go? And that feels like a fully embodied yes. So just really, yeah, bearing witness to that and kind of in awe of like, oh, so the trick the whole time was in detachment and releasing. And I know some of you listening may be so good at this, but you guys, like, I'm, I was not. I was not. I was not. I'm not going to say I am not. I was not good at the detachment and the letting go. And it's actually been something that I've been in the process of, yeah, of just undergoing for some years now. So that's just been a big challenge for me in my incarnation in this world. Obviously, I've got some karma with that. So working through that, working off that karma. Yeah, so I've just created this really beautiful life, and a lot of what I've been asking for and wishing and hoping for is literally sitting in front of me, like right now as I speak to you. And I get to bathe in the awe and the wonder of all of that. And so the friend that I am homesteading for, as I was getting ready to do this house sit, I was actually, so the plan for this was I was supposed to split it with another being. They had a friend that was going to come in and just do a little retreat for herself for the first part of it, but then she was going to have to go home. And so then I was going to finish off the house sit. So I hadn't planned to be here until kind of towards the end. And then I get a message from her. We had a big storm come through the Pacific Northwest and the mountains. And I had a message come through from her on the day that they were going to leave. And she was just like, hey, so our friend can't come because she can't make it over the pass. Like, are you basically, can you come and start tomorrow? And does that, can you do that? Does that work for you? And that I had to like sit with that for a moment because I was like, oh my gosh, like, yes, of course I want to go over to their space. And also like that those few days of my week were very, very busy. And I was just like, oh my gosh, I don't know, like, how does this feel? And so it definitely felt a little, I don't even want to call it chaos, but that's like the best word that I have for it. So like choosing to say yes felt a little bit like, oh, okay, like, but not from a like unstable space, but just from a like, okay, now how do I like a grounded, like, okay, how do I like assess this? What do I need to do here? So anyway, to get to the point of that, I was communicating that to her really quickly and over a voice message, and she sent me a really beautiful message in response that just lit up my soul and allowed me to really feel seen in what I have been, how I have been showing up in my life and what I've been creating and the work that I've been doing. And so I'd love to share this message because it feels aligned and because it's on topic. So she wrote to me, nimble and in flow is to be in your queenly nature and to trust your path. It is also a testament to the life you've cultivated that you have the bounty and blessing of flexibility and fluidity, gifts to be held in the highest regard. I see you, darling, and your path is full of very good things. Trust your worth and your bounty, and hold yourself in the highest regard above all else, because as you do, your devotion to spirit of life only deepens and speaks more clearly through all you live and do. With great appreciation, I rest now, knowing it is you who is with most of our most sacred beings and parts of our lives and home. Thank you. And receiving that and being really radically seen in that way, and having like everything in our life, everything outside of us is a direct reflection of us. Everything is a mirror. And this message mirroring to me all of the blessings and the bounty, like she said, and the gift, the absolute blessing to be able to have this flexibility and fluidity in my world that I have so carefully curated and cultivated for myself over the years. And like, it has come through work. It has come through a lot of showing up and work. And some of it has come through, yeah, like force and all of this. And maybe not always the most aligned state, but knowing that like what I was choosing felt aligned, but also a lot of the ways that the actions were coming up and through were from a very anxious state. So there wasn't a lot of flow. There was a lot of force through anxiety. And yet the choices, like the choice to go to massage school and create the life that I have so that I could work for myself and own my own business and create my own schedule and not have to ask anyone else for time off, be able to curate my life in the way that I do, and choosing to work with a really amazing company that brings clean water into everyone's homes and gives us the water that we need to be able to, so that we're not creating more toxicity in our body, because we're inundated by so many toxins around us all the time. Like being able to have the bounty to be able to choose that and to share that, and to for that to be able to even help me curate more of this life of fluidity and openness and flexibility that I've been asking for, and then being able to show others, to show you all that there is a way of doing that. And it doesn't necessarily have to be exactly the path that I've chosen, but that it's possible. And oh my gosh, like this message alone being a mirror of kind of like the culmination of what I've been creating and showing up for, it actually gave me a moment to just like sit in stillness and how respect and celebration of all that I am, of all that I be, of all that I'm creating, and that's fucking beautiful, and that I get to celebrate me, and it's such a freaking gift. Such a freaking gift what I've been able to do and what I continue to be able to cultivate. And my intention is always is how can I be of greater service to the collective, and everything I do moves from that space. And so keeping that in mind, and also keeping like my well-being and health and wellness in the highest regard, and deepening into this connection with spirit, it's everything that has been showing up for me, even the loss, or even what is perceived as loss, is just divine realignment to what I've been asking for, what I've been journaling about, how I've been wanting to show up in this world. And I know that so deeply now, and I trust that so deeply. And I also get sad about what I've had to surrender to, you know? So the unfolding of it all is pure magic, pure magic. And yeah, I just sit in awe and wonder of it all. So, on that note, I feel pretty complete. So, thank you all for listening, for being here with me, for supporting me in all the ways that you do. If you would like to support the podcast more, I will take donations. I have an email list, so if you'd like to sign up for that, that's a great way to connect with me, where I'll just share more about like local offerings I have going on, as well as just like other things going on in the world, and just other magic that I get to share from other beautiful beings, and that gets to be a really great way to connect. Yeah, and then, online, you can find me on the socials. I'm around. Okay. Appreciate you all so much. Thanks for being here. Thanks for listening, and sending out big love from my heart to yours. And happy New Year. Big love.